But
Okay,
the next thing I want to
lastly,
talk about,
okay,
is the Jazz again, but this time is it the Jazz or the field that is the biggest threat to beat the Lakers this season? Arjun, give me your thoughts on this.
I think the Jazz are the biggest threat to the Lakers as of now because if you just look at them, they beat the 76ers the other day, but it's not just another regular season game. It shows you how good their weapons are. I mean, their depth rivals the Lakers. They've got Jordan Clarkson who had 40 the other night. He is a bench player and he has 40 points. You've got Joe Ingles who can drop 20, Bogdanovich, Gobert who knows his role. And the most dangerous thing about this Jazz team is that everybody knows their role. Gobert doesn't need to have 15 points per game to live up to his contract. He averages like 11, and that's because he knows his role. And the thing about this team is that they are great at getting at the line. And the one thing that can really stop this Lakers team is foul trouble.
So you brought up about bench scoring, foul trouble. I think first off, just getting this off the bat, when I compare this, I'm not comparing this current Jazz team to AD, how he started the season, because he started the season not even playing like an all-star. I'm comparing these two teams 100% healthy, 100% COVID-free, 100% playing at 100% like we know them. But I don't think this is the Jazz. I think the Jazz are up there and they're getting their respect finally. But, I mean, really looking at it, I have to give it to the Clippers. I can't go with the Nets here. The Nets have no defense. They have a really lackluster bench. And the three stars can't be compromisable, but the rest of the team compromises itself. But when it comes down to the Clippers, why I think the Clippers are here, they are the best scoring bench in the NBA right now. There's no denying that. I mean, I think they're second or third in bench scoring total, and they're one of the highest shooting teams off the bench. You said the most important thing to slowing those two down in LeBron and Anthony Davis is foul trouble. But really, the thing that would slow them down is the two best defenders that you can pair up to stop those two. And you can't stop those two, but the two best defenders to be able to limit LeBron and AD are Kawhi and Paul George. We never got to see them do it in the playoffs, but Royce O'Neal and Rudy Gobert, they're great defenders. Royce O'Neal's a great defender. He's really underappreciated, but he's not doing anything to LeBron James. Kawhi, we know Kawhi can do a little something to LeBron James. Maybe he can switch on to Anthony Davis. You put on Paul George onto him. Maybe you keep Kawhi on LeBron and you put Serge Ibaka on AD for a couple minutes. This team has defensive weapons. They have great depth. They have Paul George finally playing a lot better than he was last season. Kawhi being up there, probably top 3 in MVP awards. And I think I have to give it to the Clippers because people have really forgotten how good that team is because of their playoff run last year.
the Clippers certainly have an advantage in a way that might not be understood because I feel like no one is focusing on them at all. The focus right now is on the Lakers. AD's injured. Obviously, always focus is going to be on LeBron. Focus is on the Nets. They have the three of the best players in the league there. I'm going to go with the Nets because I think their firepower is too much to hold back. They're not clicking well on defense at all, but I think they're going to get there because if those guys, I'm not saying they do, but if those guys don't understand their roles, each of those three guys to play defense, to step back a little bit, then they're screwed because they've gone all the way in on this. And Kyrie has already made concessions, as many people have liked to. He made a concession. He told James Harden, go ahead, you're my point guard. And I think that mindset is going to lead them to being a better defensive team. I think they're going to click more, and they just have by far the most firepower in the NBA to take down the Lakers.
No, absolutely not. Because we've seen teams that can outscore the Lakers. That's not like a thing that you really can't do. The real problem here is that you have, before this season, you have two top 5, maybe even top 3 players in the NBA that you're going against, including 2 amazing playoff players and arguably the greatest of all time who's still playing prime basketball and also a deep bench, also a great team. If you're not looking to outscore this team because this team has defense too. This team has offense and defense. You have to be able to somewhat guard LeBron and Anthony Davis. The Nets could somehow, maybe, if everything goes perfect and they sign a couple guys, maybe get JaVale McGee via trade, maybe Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond are bought out, you get both of them, you'll have an average defense. This defense in the Nets that the Nets have right now is atrocious. DeAndre Jordan would be a good piece on defense 5 years ago. Jeff Green and DeAndre and Kevin Durant are sharing spots at the 5 sometimes. That's not winning you a championship. No matter how much talent you have on your team, you need defense, especially against LeBron and Anthony Davis. And it just so happens that the Nets' biggest problem is not perimeter defense, but it's paint defense. And now you have Anthony Davis, arguably the best big in the league, and you have to stop him with the worst paint defense in the NBA, and I just can't ever see that happening.
And the thing is that you compared this Clippers team to the Jazz team defense-wise. I mean, if you look at the Lakers as a team, they're mostly gonna hurt you in the paint. Kawhi can guard LeBron, and Kawhi's a terrific defender. There's no doubt about it. He's one of the top defenders in the NBA. But when it comes to LeBron going full steam at you, there is not a lot you can do to stop that. And if you look at the paint, Rudy Gobert knows his role. He's not gonna be a huge offensive presence. He'll get some lobs, he'll get some putback shots, but he's going to conserve most of his energy on the defensive end. And on the offensive end, he's going to set screens and get like easy, high percentage shots. So if you look at the chemistry too, and you look at the people that they know their role, this defense is they could arguably be better than the Clippers because they have that kind of depth and they have that kind of mindset.
Okay, overall defense, you're correct. No, overall defense, you're correct. I think there's absolutely a way that you can say that the Jazz are a better defensive team than the Clippers. They have Mike Conley, who's not by far, but he's their best perimeter defender. They have Royce O'Neal, one of the most underappreciated defenders in the league. He's straight up clamps on almost anybody. You have Rudy Gobert. Of course, Rudy Gobert. We all know what he does defensively. He's Defensive Player of the Year right now. You have Donovan Mitchell holding his own. And you have decent defense off your bench too. So, I mean, that defense overall is great. But what I really focus on is Dennis Schroeder. It can give you 17 to 20. That's not a concern. The concern is slowing down Anthony Davis and LeBron James as much as you can. And the people with the two best stoppers of LeBron and Anthony Davis that you could realistically picture together are Kawhi and Paul George. They're on the same team, and they have it on both ends. They picked up Luke Kennard. He wasn't the all-star point guard they wanted, but they have a decent bench. They have Markieff Morris. You saw this bench team that didn't have Kawhi, PG, and I don't think they had Lou or Pat Bev either, and they beat the Miami Heat, who have been on fire recently. So this bench is better than the Jazz bench, I would say. They're definitely a better scoring bench, and when it comes to stopping LeBron and Anthony Davis, they are a better defense than the Jazz. Total defense is a different story.
Okay, but I have to mention, to Arjun's point about the Jazz, they are a great matchup for the Lakers, surprisingly enough. I don't think anyone thought we'd be saying this last year when we looked at the Jazz, how they were playing last year. They are clicking like every team in the NBA hopes to click as a team. They're arguably the most complete team in the NBA. They're playing so well. Like you said, Arjun, everyone knows their role. They're pretty much doing very well in every area that the Nets are lacking, which is what I want to go back to. I know what you said. I understand both of your concerns about the Nets, the concerns about defense, and that they really just don't have great defense on the inside. But I just think that they are a good matchup for the Lakers, and that they need to understand how they're going to match up with teams like that, because it's going to get real really soon. Otherwise, they're just not going to have any success, not just this year, but in the next couple of years. And I just think that they can get it done. I think they have to get it done. And they understand that because they're all in places in their career where this is a really important season for all of them.
Okay, yeah, I think what's so special about this Jazz team is that what gave them an advantage over the other teams, especially in this type of season, is that coming into this offseason, a lot of teams made a lot of big moves. Like you saw the Suns, they traded for CP3, and you saw, of course, the Nets, they traded for Harden mid-season. In a season where you really can't be with your teammates, the Jazz can join a team that was all together last season, and then the only addition, they sent out Tony Bradley to Philly, and they picked up Derek Favors, who was an ex-Jazz player earlier in his career. I mean, the chemistry is on point, and they clicked earlier than other teams got to click, and I think that's why they're performing so well, but also...